The following video is not made for kids. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello to my subscribers. This is the TFN coming to you with what will hopefully be a quick and successful review. And tonight I thought about, since it's been almost 2 weeks since I did my last review, I thought what figure would be a good one to skip back into making reviews on. And I decided the best one would be action figure from a line where this is so far the only one from this line of Transformers I've added to my collection. And it is none other than one of the main characters from the latest Transformers film to be released. So before we continue, if anyone still hasn't yet watched the most recent Transformers movie, Transformers 1, then there will be spoilers in this review. That's why I even put it in the title of the video. So without further delay, let's take a look at the Transformers 1. I believe the official name for this size of action figure is a Prime Changer, but this is basically the standard Transformers 1 line deluxe class action figure of Sentinel Prime. So yes, this is the game. So like I said, there's spoilers, so then we say here he is, the big bad bot of Transformers 1, Sentinel Prime. I'm the self-proclaimed commander of the Autobots, who was leader before Optimus Prime. Before the Transformers 1 film was launched, Sentinel Prime's two primary claims to fame in the Transformers franchise were the Transformers animated cartoon series, in which he was a total jackass who badmouthed everyone and everything and thought he was superior to everyone. And then the next one was the third Transformers movie, Transformers Dark of the Moon, that was released in 2011, where he was a full-blown traitor who murdered Ironhide. And now, with Transformers 1, it's revealed that Sentinel Prime went an even farther step than being a traitor who murdered Ironhide to being a genocidal maniac who murdered all but one of the 13 original Primes. The only survivor was Alpha Trion, who barely managed to hang on by a thread. So, yeah, Sentinel Prime, he's now rivaled Megatron in being one of the most unlikable Transformers characters of the Transformers franchise. And since he's officially still an Autobot, even though on his box, and now that I'm looking closely at his action figure, even though I've already watched several reviews of this figure already, I don't think he actually has any Autobot logos on him anywhere. So, yeah, so that's a pretty interesting thing right there. One of the make it or break it deals with this mainline version of Sentinel Prime is that here on the front of the box art that's used for Sentinel Prime's jet mode, it's based more off the design for the jets of the Seekers from the Bumblebee movie, so it looks more like Starscream, Thundercracker, and Skywarp instead of the actual jet that Sentinel Prime transforms into. And so a lot of Transformers fans and collectors have viewed it as being a false advertising, since it shows Sentinel Prime transforming into a different shaped jet than what he actually does. But yeah, you've got poster images for the Transformers 1 movie on various sides of the box. You got it on the top, and then you've got a slightly different image for Transformers 1 here on the side of the box. You've got the four main characters featured in the film: Optimus Prime, who is known as Orion Pax; Megatron, who is known as D16; Bumblebee, who is known as B-127 from the first, from the Bumblebee movie, where he had that name before he arrived on Earth. And then you also have up here Alita 1. And I'm just realizing Alita 1's the only main character who didn't go through a name change, so I kind of wish they would have named her Ariel in the Transformers 1 film like she did in the G1 cartoon, where when she was younger, Alita 1 used to be known as Autobot Ariel. But I can kind of see why I can forgive Hasbro for not making her undergo a name change, but it would have been nice just to see that happen with her along with the other main characters from Transformers 1. But bringing focus back here to Sentinel Prime, he is in robot mode and in his alt mode of a Cybertronian jet. And as you can see, compared to the box art, the jet doesn't have the underside cannon. It doesn't have the top tail fin, trapezoidal shaped tail fin section. It's a flatter jet, and the cannons are on the side of the wings instead of under the fuselage. So yeah, that's been one of the make it or break it deals with the mainline Sentinel Prime action figure, is the jet mode is completely different than the image on his box art. For me personally, I originally passed on Sentinel Prime the first time I saw him, but then After I saw him at Target, I came home and I looked around my Transformers collection, and I realized before I got this figure, I only had a total of 3 Sentinel Prime action figures in my Transformers collection, so this one has become the 4th. I'm still debating whether or not if I'm going to get the upcoming Transformers Studio Series Transformers 1 Voyager class Sentinel Prime action figure. I most likely will. But as this video is recording, it's October of 2024, and the Studio Series Voyager class Sentinel Prime figure, Amazon currently has it street dated for release during March of next year in 2025. Whether or not that's going to be bumped up and he'll be released before Christmas, we'll have to see in the coming weeks. But for now, this is the only Transformers. This is one of only 2 Transformers 1 Sentinel Prime action figures. The other one that's out there is like a smaller, even smaller automatic changer, like a flip transforming figure. But anyways, I realized since I can literally count using the fingers on just one of my hands how many Sentinel Prime action figures I have in my Transformers collection, I figured why not get this figure and add it as well. Like I said, I currently have no interest in getting any of the other characters from action figures from Transformers 1. If and when I see the Studio Series Transformers 1 Megatron, I may get the Studio Series Optimus Prime figure as well. But the Studio Series Transformers figures, just like the previous Transformers films that were filmed in live action, Transformers 1, even though it's the first ever Transformers film to be done entirely using CGI animation, just like previous lines of Transformers action figures based on the films, Transformers 1, the Studio Series figures are slightly better quality than the mainline figures. But for now, I think this one is a pretty decent Sentinel Prime action figure, so let's get it out of the box and take a close look at Sentinel Prime in his robot mode. Alright, and so here is Sentinel Prime out of his box, and yeah, he is, for being a mainline figure, he is fairly impressive. He's not that small. He is smaller than an average deluxe class-sized Transformers figure. I want to say that Sentinel Prime and the Prime Changers from Transformers 1, they're about 4.5 inches tall instead of the normal 5.5 inches tall that deluxe class Transformers usually are. But for what it's doing, being a mainline Transformers figure that necessarily wouldn't be bought by an adult collector, but could also be bought by a younger Transformers fan, or one that's just become a Transformers fan for the first time watching Transformers 1. And it's a fairly decent Sentinel Prime action figure. It is fairly cartoon accurate, though I think if the shade of blue was slightly darker than the final version we got, shade of blue plastic used here on him, then I think it would be even more or screen accurate. But for accessory pieces, he's got 4 laser guns. He's got the 2 here on the tops of his shoulders. He's got the 2 he's holding in his hands, and then he's also got the shield that he was shown using in the film. So overall, a decent little Sentinel Prime action figure to have. For articulation, it's pretty standard. The arms can rotate forward and backwards at the shoulder on a swivel joint. They can also go upward this much, though the upward joint on the shoulder, fresh out of the box, is a little stiff. Head's on a ball joint, so it can spin left and right 360 degrees. No swivel joint in the bicep, but there is one at the top of the elbow, and then a hinge joint on the lower elbow. No wrist articulation since the hands are sculpted in place. There is a waist joint, but due to the V shape of Sentinel Prime's pelvis, you only get a fraction of movement in the hip joint, in the waist joint. Legs can go out this far before they get stuck. Look on the sculpted detailing. We go forward that far, backwards that far. Swivel joint in the thigh. Hinge knees, which are fairly stiff out of the box, and not much in terms of foot articulation. You do get an ankle rocker, but in terms of actually moving the foot up and down, out of the box, some of the joints are very stiff, but the foot, I meant to say, can only go that far before it hits this kibble here on the back of the leg. So, fairly decent amount of articulation. And then, of course, the wings, you can display them at an angle, or you can display them flush on against Sentinel Prime's back, which is how they are out of the box. They aren't pinned in place, the wings are pegged in place, and I can already, even though I just showed that some of the joints on Sentinel Prime are stiff, the wings are a little loose here, so I can over time see those popping off if you transform Sentinel Prime back and forth between robot mode and vehicle mode too often. And so, yeah, I really like the color choice they went with for Sentinel Prime, being mostly blue with yellowish orange highlights. That retroactively ended up being the primary color scheme for Generation 1 Sentinel Prime. It was popularized by his Transformers animated version being almost entirely blue with some orange highlights, and then Hasbro decided to retroactively make the Autobot in the Transformers Generation 1 cartoon seen in the G1 Season 3 episode, Five Faces of Darkness. I think it might have been Part 4 or Part 5, where a mostly blue and orange Autobot took the Matrix of Leadership out of his chest and gave it to Alpha Trion before he was murdered by the Decepticons. That ended up being a retroactively Sentinel Prime. So pretty much color-wise, the Transformers 1 version of Sentinel Prime, it's very similar to his Generation 1 cartoon counterparts paint job. But the main difference being the vehicle modes. Because Sentinel Prime was a character who originated in the Transformers Generation 1 comic books published by Marvel when they tried to show who was commander of the Autobots before Optimus Prime. Sentinel Prime's vehicle mode, he hasn't necessarily had a standard alt mode that he constantly transforms into. So if you look at the various versions of Sentinel Prime that have been released, such as Dark of the Moon Sentinel Prime, for example, or the Titans Return IDW Optimus Prime action figure that was released in 2016. The reason why Sentinel Prime has a array of variety of paint jobs and alt modes is because there's basically the comic book version of him. It wasn't quite as popular with Transformers fans overall. Also, there's been no definitive look for Sentinel Prime to have, but with the release of Transformers 1 having paint jobs similar to the G1 cartoon and the Transformers animated cartoon, mostly blue with orange highlights might be the new definitive paint job for Sentinel Prime. Whether or not a Cybertronian jet will be his definitive alt mode, that remains to be seen, since in the Transformers Generation 1 cartoon, G1 cartoon Sentinel Prime transformed into a Cybertronian pickup truck, and then, of course, animated Sentinel Prime transformed into a snowplow. Now, the only other major versions of Sentinel Prime out there are Dark of the Moon Sentinel Prime, which transformed into a fire truck, and Titans Return Sentinel Prime, which was moldmates with Astro Train, so he was a triple changer whose two alt modes were a Cybertronian space shuttle and a Cybertronian train. So who knows what types of vehicle modes Sentinel Prime will take on in the future, but chances are very likely at this point that if we get any more iterations of Sentinel Prime someday, they may have his mostly blue and orange paint job instead of the mostly red paint job that was popularized by the Dark of the Moon version of Sentinel Prime. So, even though I do have a handful of other Sentinel Prime action figures, I apologize I couldn't find them to bring out for some size comparisons in the review, but for a size comparison with an Optimus Prime action figure that I think is fairly accurate to the sizes that Sentinel Prime and Optimus Prime / Orion Pax had in the Transformers 1 film. Here he is next to the Transformers Legacy Evolution Core Class Optimus Prime. This is the version that came in the box set with Core Class Bumblebee and the trailer. So, yeah, this I believe is fairly size accurate. It was implied even in his original comic book appearance that Sentinel Prime was slightly larger than Optimus Prime. So yeah, I think this is the most size accurate Optimus Prime next to this Sentinel Prime action figure. So there's a size comparison with that. And that's pretty much it. I'm babbling at this point, so to stop myself and keep the video as short as possible and more interesting, let's get Sentinel Prime transformed into his jet mode, and we will wrap up the review. Alright, and so here is Sentinel Prime transformed into his jet mode. Again, it doesn't look a thing like the, I can get it over here, the box art on his box. So yeah, the jet mode pictured on the box. The artwork's based more off the Bumblebee movie Seeker, so it is a tad disappointing that they didn't try and do some box art that reflects the actual more streamlined jet mode that Sentinel Prime transforms into, but it is still an impressive jet mode for how it transforms. One of the most difficult parts is getting the nose cone halves to tap into place together. That's extremely difficult. Well, as you can see right there, when I tried to push the back X section here, the tip wanted to unpeg. Thanks. So, Sentinel Prime's jet mode intent is depends entirely on panel sections lining up properly and being rotated correctly. So it can be a tad difficult to get everything to line up at the exact way you want. But I do like that there is some fairly decent weapon storage for all of his accessory pieces. The shield just comes an extension for the back section of the jet mode. You can have it pacing forward, but when it's rotated back like it officially shows on the images on the box, then it sits more flush with the top of the jet mode. But then the double barrel laser guns store right here underneath the wings, and the pegs that they attach to are actually hollowed out, so those little holes right there are the actual top of these weapons pieces. So that's one thing to keep in mind about. You can also technically leave the shoulder cannons attached to Sentinel Prime's shoulders when you transform him, but after the first time transforming it out of the box, I think it's actually easier to remove the laser guns and then reattach them once you're done transforming, because it allows the back section to it allows you to peg the shoulders more firmly together. I apologize, it's late at night and my words are failing me, so. But yeah, so nice sculpted detailing on here. You've got the two tail fins right here, which were actually the section sticking out of the back of the legs, trying to fill the backside of Sentinel Prime's legs so they wouldn't be totally hollow. And the reason why the legs are almost mostly hollow is due to how they transform like this, where the upper half of the leg goes into the lower half to form the base section of the jet mode. The cockpit, I love that the windows are painted this nice silver that matches the silver used on all the missiles. And all the parts on Sentinel Prime that are silver are done in silver paint. And so that's one thing to keep an eye out for. So, and like I said, it's really flat. There's no landing gear, but these days, most jet transformers, it's actually rare when they actually have landing gear given to them. But overall, pretty decent looking Cybertronian jet mode. First size comparison, once again, here he is with the core class Optimus Prime. And I think this is a fairly decent size accurate Optimus Prime figure next to this action figure. So overall, all a fun jet transformer to actually have in my opinion, anyone's Transformers collection. And just like on the box, the Autobot logo not being present anywhere, there are no Autobot logos on here, so this action figure is technically a factionless Transformers, so that's pretty sneaky, in my opinion, on the designer's part, not actually making Sentinel Prime an Autobot. I guess they figured since he's the villain of the film, to say that he's not actually an Autobot would show how villainous he actually is to younger viewers watching the Transformers 1 film. So, for my final thoughts on Sentinel Prime, do I recommend getting this figure and adding it to your Transformers collection? Absolutely. It's very rare when action figures of Sentinel Prime are made. I think the previous action figure released before the Transformers 1 Sentinel Prime figures may have been the Transformers Studio Series Dark of the Moon Sentinel Prime figures, which might have been released back in either 2021 or 2022. So it's been a few years since we saw action figures of Sentinel Prime hit the shelves. So I do recommend you get this figure. If you're not even a fan of Transformers 1, and ignoring the film for just a second. As far as a standalone Transformers action figure, this is a fairly decent Transformers action figure, and if you're a fan of Sentinel Prime and you like seeing action figures of the leader of the Autobots before, or Optimus Prime, then even as a standalone figure, I still recommend getting this because it's a fairly nice Transformers action figure to have. So thank you to all my subscribers for your continued support. Thank you everyone for watching this review. Until next time, you guys, please remember to stay safe, stay healthy. As I said at the start of the video, this Sentinel Prime is the only Transformers 1 figure I currently have, so future reviews will, as you can tell behind me, be mostly of action figures from the Transformers Legacy line. I still have a couple of Evolution action figures, such as Commander Class Armada Optimus Prime, that I still have to review, but mostly Transformers Legacy United figures with some Studio Series 86 figures thrown in as well. Thank you guys all so much, and until next time, you guys, transform and roll out. This has been the TFN Geek. Thank you all so much. Till all are one.